Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mishnapad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotartha Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujikacharya Ashtotartha Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kwantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta-vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 29th day of June, 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order. Chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva, text number 64. Trishtang swashakye davanu pravishtash chaturvidham puramatmang shakena ato vidustam purushang santamantar Bhunkte rishikar murusara ghangyah Srishtam sashakyedamanu pravishtas Chaturvidham purumatmanksikena Ato vidustam purushang santamantar Bhunkte rishika madhusara gangyaha Srishtam sashakyedamanu pravishtas Chaturvidham purumatmanksikena Ato vidustam purushang santamantar Bhunkte rishika madhusara gangyaha Srishtam sashakyedamanu pravishtas Chaturvidham purumatmanksikena Ato vidustam purushang santamantar Bhunkte rishika madhusara gangyaha Srishtam sashakyedamanu pravishtas Chaturvidham purumatmanksikena Ato vidustam purushang santamantar Bhunkte rishika madhusara gangyaha Srishtam sashakyedamanu pravishtas Chaturvidham purumatmanksikena Ato vidustam purushang santamantar Te rishika madhusara gangyaha Srishtam sashakyedamanu pravishtas Chaturvidham purumatmanksikena Ado vidustam purushang santamantar Bhunkte rishika madhusara gangyaha Srishtam sashakyedamanu pravishtas Chaturvidham purumatmanksikena Ato vidustam purushang santamantar Bhunkte rishika madhusara gangyaha Srishtam, in the creation, swashaktya, by your own potency, idam, this cosmic manifestation, anupravishtaha, entering afterward, chatu vidham, four kinds of puram, bodies, atma angshikena, by your own part and parcel, ato, therefore, viduhu, no, tam, him, purusham, the enjoyer, santam, existing, antaha, within, bhunkte, enjoys, rishikai, by the senses, madhu, sweetness, saragam, honey, yaha, one who. Translation. Lord Shiva continues to pray. My dear Lord, after creating by your own potencies, you enter within the creation in four kinds of forms. Being within the hearts of the living entities, you know them and know how they are enjoying their senses. The so-called happiness of this material creation is exactly like the bee's enjoyment of honey after it has been collected in the honeycomb. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The material cosmic manifestation is an exhibition of the external energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because dull matter cannot work independently, the Lord Himself enters within this material creation in the form of a partial expansion, Paramatma, and He enters also by His separated parts and parcels, the living entities. In other words, both the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead enter into the material creation just to make it active. As stated at Bhagavad Gita 7.5, apade, I'll say, you say, apade mitastvanyam Prakratim vidhime param Jiva bhutam mahabaho Yayedang dharyate jagat. I'm going to read the new translation. Besides these, Almighty Armed Arjun, there is another superior energy of mine which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. That's what Prabhupada said. And oh God, what did I do here? I'm sorry. Oh, here. It said that they are struggling with the material nature and are sustaining the universe instead of exploiting the material nature. Since the material world cannot work independently, the living entities enter into the material manifestation in 4 different types of bodies. The word Chaturvidham is significant in this verse. There are 4 types of living entities born within this material world. Some are born by way of an embryo, Jarayuja, by way of eggs, Andaja, perspiration, Svedaja, and, like the trees, by way of seeds, Udbija. Regardless of how these living entities appear, they are all busy in the pursuit of sense enjoyment. The materialistic scientists' contention that the living entities, other than human beings, have no soul is nullified herein. Whether they are born through an embryo, eggs, perspiration, or seeds, all living entities in the 8,400,000 species of life are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and each, therefore, is an individual spiritual spark and soul. The Supreme Personality of Godhead also remains within the heart of the living entity, regardless of whether the living entity is a man, animal, tree, germ, or microbe. The Lord resides in everyone's heart. And because all living entities who come to this material world do so in order to fulfill their desire for sense enjoyment, the Lord directs the living entities to enjoy their senses. Thus the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knows everyone's desires. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham hridisannivishto mattaksmati jnanam apohanam cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Remaining within the hearts of all living entities, the Lord bestows remembrance by which the living entities can enjoy certain things. Thus the living entities create their enjoyable honeycombs and then enjoy them. The example of the bees is appropriate because, and this I didn't know, because when bees try to enjoy their honeycomb, they have to suffer the bites of other bees. Because bees bite one another when they enjoy honey, they are not exclusively enjoying the sweetness of the honey, for there is also suffering. In other words, the living entities are subjected to the pains and pleasures of material enjoyment, whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowing their plans for sense enjoyment, is aloof from them. In the Upanishads, the example is given of 2 birds sitting on a tree. One bird, the jiva or living entity, is enjoying the fruits of that tree, and the other bird, the Paramatma, is simply witnessing. In the Bhagavad Gita 13:23, the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the Paramatma is described as Upadrashta, the overseer, and Anumanta, the permitter. Thus the Lord simply witnesses and gives the living entity sanction for sense enjoyment. It is the Paramatma who gives the intelligence by which the bees can construct a hive, collect honey from various flowers, store it, and enjoy it. Although the Paramatma is aloof from the living entities, he knows their intentions, and he gives them facilities by which they can enjoy or suffer the results of their actions. Human society is exactly like a beehive, for everyone is engaged in collecting honey from various flowers, or collecting money from various sources, and creating large empires for common enjoyment. However, after these empires are created, the bees of other nations have to be suffered. Sorry. Hare Krishna in the back. However, after these empires are created, the bites of other nations have to be suffered. Sometimes nations declare war upon one another, and the human beehives become sources of misery. Although human beings are creating their beehives in order to enjoy the sweetness of their senses, they are at the same time suffering from the bites of other persons or nations. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Paramatma, is simply witnessing all these activities. The conclusion is that both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Jivas enter into this material world. However, the Paramatma, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is worshipable because he has arranged for the happiness of the living entity in the material world. Because it is the material world, however, no one can enjoy any kind of happiness without inebriety. Material enjoyment means inebriety, whereas spiritual enjoyment means pure enjoyment under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this is very fascinating about the bees. It brings to mind a verse by Prahlad Maharaj in his prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, where Prahlad, when you read those prayers, you realize that he often takes the role of a conditioned soul, and he's praying in a certain way. So here he's giving his assessment of material life, and he says, Kutrashisha Shuti Sukha Mrigatvishni Rupa Kvedam Kaleva Damasheshuda Jamviroha Nirvidyate Nadutano Tatapiti Vidvan Kama Lalan Muralavai Sarnayang Durapai. So he starts out, he says, Kutrashisha, what's the use of these aspirations to enjoy material sense gratification? It's just like Shruti Sukha. Most of the enjoyment is just the anticipation. Is you're turning it over in your mind and you're enjoying, I'll meet her, we'll do all this stuff. And it's all mental. So Shruti Sukha. And therefore, Mrigatrishni Rupa, it has the nature of a mirage. That material happiness has the nature of mirage, is that you're anticipating it, you're looking for it, you're fantasizing about it. This is what advertising is all about, is to give you some anticipation and plant a desire seed in your heart, that to enjoy buy something. And then it inevitably doesn't meet your expectations, which is the mirages. You're there, and where is it? It's completely gone. So this is his assessment. And then he says, and really, this body, you're saying this is a source of enjoyment? It's a reservoir of all kinds of diseases. Kvedam kalevadam asheshu rujam viroha. Rujam is disease, viroha means a abode or a reservoir. So you're trying to enjoy something means that you're in denial. You're in denial, first of all, most of the things that people enjoy, especially modern age, is going to cause disease. There's an epidemic, not only our pandemic, coronavirus, but there's a real epidemic of obesity, not just in America, all over the world, because everyone wants to eat like the Americans. Or you have the American lifestyle being exported, which is so much time used for trying to make money, and there's not enough time to cook. In traditional societies, you had the woman cook. Now the woman's working to try to perform. So what do you need? Fast food. You need the convenience of fast food, which means artificial food and processed food, and that creates all this obesity. So we're exporting the lifestyle and and that causes all kinds of diseases. All kinds of diseases, this obesity. So that's a perfect example, of the pleasure, the sense pleasure of eating these engineered foods that are designed to addict you, and then all of the pain that comes with it. So it says, Kvedam kalevadam asheshuda jamviroha. This human body is not meant for simply enjoying our senses, because it causes untold suffering. A little bit of enjoyment and a whole ton of suffering. So then he says something very interesting. But he says, in spite of this understanding, nirvidyate vidvan, even the vidvans, even who understand, the wise people, who understand the craziness of sense gratification, the self-defeat of sense gratification, they can't stop it. Nirvidyate. They don't give it up. Why? Because of the honey. Kamanalam mudalavai shamayang durapai. Kamanalam means the fire of lust, the fire of material desire, the mode of passion, which you try to quench, or you try to put out by the drops of honey-like sense gratification. That very fire and that endeavor covers the knowledge. Even though you know theoretically that this is happening, you can't stop it. And isn't that what's going on everywhere? Just think of this climate change thing. I read an article recently that's just hair-raising. These projections they've been made. Yeah, by the end of the century, this is going to happen. And if we don't get this, all of that stuff they're doing at the end of the century is going to happen by the end of this decade. It's speeding up. 105 degrees in the Arctic, Siberian Arctic. It's unheard of. And permafrost is collapsing, and big oil spills, and whole cities built on the permafrost, and that it's just going on crazy. And yet, you find the big industrialists and the people just ignoring it. They're just forging ahead, burning fossil fuels, more oil, more this and more that, giving lip service to, In other words, the money, which is a honey, probably use that a lot, is just too intoxicating. Even these intelligent people, you got to be pretty smart to make $1 million, $1 billion, right? They're just too intoxicated. So that happens on an individual level also. We're aspiring transcendentalists, but the propensity for sense gratification is there. Okay, we may be in an ashram and so we can't enjoy this, obviously, but we can enjoy that, somehow or other. Sleeping in, whatever, cutting corners. And that slows our progress in devotional service. Because it not only, draws the illusory cushion over, but it also attacks our bhakti creeper. When you read the 10 offenses, it says, well, that kind of covers everything, doesn't it? I always thought that one about disobeying the orders of the spiritual master, that's it. Or maintaining material desires, even after understanding so many instructions by it. Not being attentive. You can see how this is, is so important, these offenses, to understand them and try to combat them. So this is, how does it all work? Every so often, now with this internet classes more prominent, I'm giving classes here and there, people write me, and it's the same old question, that keeps coming up. Well, if everything was so fine in Vaikuntha, why did we leave? How did we fall from the spiritual world? And there's a whole group of devotees, not so much in ISKCON, who think we never fell from the spiritual world. We've always been here. But that kind of throws a cocked hat into the idea that it's our fault, isn't it? I mean, if we're never there when we made the decision to turn away from Krishna, how did we get here? We didn't get here. We've always been here. Doesn't that kind of present a problem? Anyway, that's not Prabhupada's philosophy, and there's a beautiful book, if you're interested in this subject, by Judah Karma, a book called The Origin of the Jiva. It was written like 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when the issue was very much prominent. But he has quotes by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Jiva Goswami, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur supporting the idea that somehow or other we developed a desire to enjoy like Krishna rather than serve Krishna. And that's the origin of our problem. We turn away, we turn our back on Krishna. Just like when you're chanting your rounds, we're reenacting that fall every day. Unless you're completely absorbed for 16 rounds and 32 syllables, What causes us the mind to wander? It's that latent desire to turn away from Krishna and think of something else and absorb yourself in something else. That's what happened. That's why we're here. And bhakti is the effort through discipline, through accepting authority, through hard work, to turn the mind back to Krishna to the point where it doesn't leave anymore. Completely absorbed, constant remembrance of Krishna, and having no other desire but to serve Krishna. That's the ideal that we're working toward. So, how does it work? When the soul, and we're in the minority, the majority of the souls never leave the spiritual, and never have left the spiritual world, and will never leave the spiritual. But we're in the minority, the 1/4, roughly, it says in the Shastra, that have turned away, and by and large, the vast majority of souls in this world, they're not human beings. They're trees and plants, and the viruses, it's questionable whether they're alive right away. It's a weird thing. But there's enough microbes, Prabhupada mentions it. Germs, bacteria are different than viruses. They're alive, There's souls in there. It's like practically all the time when I put the, I soak these apricots in the morning. So I have to use that paper, to dry my hands, because I wash my hands, obviously. And practically all the time, there's a little cockroach who's taking shelter in there, and wakes up and starts to try to expand. They're all living entities. Their universe, they're in the same world we are, the same kitchen we are, the same, 10 cubic feet, but they're in a different world. Their consciousness is totally different. The same soul that was once in a human being is now in this cockroach. Fortunately, the cockroach should be in the devotee kitchen, but we won't go there, rather than some other kitchen. But the point is that just the number of cockroaches, how many ultimate trillions of those on this earth, compared to this a few billion human beings, and how many amongst those billions of human beings are basically just living like animals? It's very rare. Lord Chaitanya goes through in a teaching to Rupa Goswami. You remember that? He says there's so many human beings, but then there's a very small portion who are just familiar with the Vedic culture. There's a small portion who are actually leading the Vedas, a small portion. It becomes very, very rare to find a soul who gets the seed of bhakti planted by the grace of Krishna and the spiritual master. Brahmande brahmate kon, bhagyavan jeev, Guru Krishna Basare Pai, Bhakti Lata Beach. This is one of the really important verses we should all know. So Brahmanda Brahmate Kon. We're wandering through Brahmanda. Who can say how the word Brahmanda is put together? What does that mean? Anda's egg. And what's the first part? Brahma's egg. The universe. Brahma, the creator. The universe is like an egg. And why is it called an egg? Because it's got this barrier on it. It's got a covering which is way thicker than the little room in the middle. And we're sitting in there, and anyway, it's the whole thing. So we've been wandering up and down the different planets in this Brahmanda, this universe, different species, for who knows how long. How many millions of lifetimes of Brahma. Before, and now we've got that seed been planted. Somehow or other, by Prabhupada's grace and his hard work and his courage, he created a situation where there's these temples, there's the books, there's devotees who can implant that seed through their sincere effort. By practicing, you become qualified to inspire others to become devotees. Without the practice, it's useless. The Bhagavad Gita may be there. University, I told this story before. In 1982 or 81, I was working in Philadelphia on the BTG, and Jayawada Swami was there, but his main work at that time was revising the Gita. And so he would buy some of these, he had one or two of the Gitas published in the universities, as a reference, So I peeked into one I saw, and it was... these books, they cost like $30, $40, $50 because they only print maybe a few hundred of them. They're only, a lot of these university published books. I don't know if you know that. They use in just a few courses, whatever. So he was able to get one of those. And it was like, one verse per page. I didn't see any explanation, maybe a few little notes, on the Sanskrit and so forth. So who's going to really benefit from that book? There's no way that you're going to get to the point, and, you may read that verse and understand its dictionary meaning, and sarvatama pratyajya mamekangsharamaja, but there's no way in the world that from that book you'll come to the point of surrendering to Krishna, thinking of him all the time, It's just a cultural artifact, and then, you think, oh, this is similar to what the Egyptians say, so then you make a paper, you write a PhD on that, Gets you nowhere. Closer to the goal of meanwhile, you're eating meat and having sex and doing all these things. But Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, even though all the work that Maharaj was doing was, fixing the many errors in there. We can go over that sometime. Maybe I'll do a presentation. But the potency was there because, Prabhupada is a devotee, and he's giving the actual meaning of the words and seeing this is what it means. Krishna is speaking to you. He's speaking to every reader. through Arjuna, through the thousands of years, and now through the English language, it's coming down. And that had the power to actually plant the seed of faith in devotees. They would read that. I remember hearing the story about, and this story was repeated in many places. Some people in this room may have had that experience. I didn't have that particular experience. But Keshava Bharati Maharaj, before he came, he was one of the many young people who were searching, going here and there, looking for, truth, investigating this Upanishad, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, Be Here Now, there's all kinds of things to look at. And still searching. And then he got Prabhupada's books. This is it. He read the whole book in like 2 days. He didn't sleep or whatever, it was just that. And then afterward, he found a temple and he joined. Bhagavad Gita as it is. 1972 edition. So that this is Prabhupada's great gift to us, is that there's actually a chance in this time, after his great effort taking it out of India, for anyone in the world to receive that inspiration to pursue bhakti, to associate with devotees, learn more, read the books, and actually take up the process. So what's the essence of that process? Here it's described very nicely. The living entity in the creation, we enter into one of these 4 seeds, right? These 4 sources. All that is ja. Ja means born. Jarayu ja, an embryo. Okay, that's us. Eggs, birds, and a million others. Sveta ja, there's certain insects. The perspiration is the womb, which the living entity somehow comes out of. And then seeds is unlimited kinds of plants and things that come through seeds. Perspiration is some kind of insects or whatever, where the motion. No, it's like you're perspiring, and then some germ comes on there. And they in other words, they take shelter of the perspiration. And then they like that. I don't know. There's 4 kinds. So, but fruit flies, perspiration, huh? Anyway, we'll look into it. The point is there are all kinds of ways in which the living entity can somehow get a body, with senses, and try to enjoy, But along with the enjoyment, this is a wonderful bee analogy. There's suffering. Krishna says, Yehi sangsparsha bhoga dukkha yonevate, he says right in the Bhagavad Gita. This sangsparsha ja, here's the ja again. The bhoga, the enjoyment that comes from the senses touching their sense objects. And it doesn't mean touching essentially. The eyes, when they see a beautiful form, that's the eyes touching the sense objects. And every sense has this contact with the sense object that produces sometimes some pleasure. Okay, there is a pleasure there. But it's fleeting and it produces misery. Here the misery is, and this was the answer, the question. Was it Maharaj's question or Maharaj's answer? Yeah, Maharaj gave the answer. That is all of this, I think gave the answer to his own question. Okay, why doesn't Krishna make us, why does he put the suffering in here? If he's so merciful, why doesn't he create a world where we can also enjoy like anything? All right, but then you have the unlimited other devotees, other living entities also trying to enjoy the same thing you're trying to enjoy. In other words, there's competition. The bees are biting each other to get to the honey, isn't it? And so that's one of the elements, even in the heavenly planets. How many times do we read in the Bhagavatam, the demigods, they're either getting attacked by the demons and are afraid of losing their kingdoms, or Indra's worried, oh my God, some yogi there is going to take my position, he has to, That this is the inevitable nature of material happiness, is that it's fleeting or it's threatened with somebody taking it away from you. And so that in itself is an inebriety. Now Prabhupada created this word, the inebrieties. There's no plural of inebrieties. Inebriety is a state of being, which means drunkenness, basically. But in Prabhupada's language, and we leave it, it's created new uses for words. It means negative things, pains, suffering. In Vaikuntha, all the inebrieties are very, very, what does he call it? Not prominent. They're obvious by their absence, right? Conspicuous by their absence. So, where do you find that here? You can't find a place. People are looking for it. Right now, they've already built them, and now they're taking advantage of them. The billionaires, the people, that upper 1/100th of 1%, they've built bunkers. And it's not like some bunker with, 10 by 10. These are elaborate houses underground, where they're going to, be able to survive. Well, they're taking advantage of it now. Now the pandemic, we can go there and live and be happy with our children, and we don't have to worry till it's all over. So I once read how one guy was asking a question, does anyone have any advice, he's a multimillionaire, billionaire who built it, how we can make sure that the people, because if you're going to really be, comfortable, you need servants, right? So they're going to have a whole crew that they're going to pay, of course. But what's the point of paying someone, if there's apocalypse, there's no place to spend the money, In other words, how do we keep our staff from turning on us, And the answer is there's no way. There's no way. Because it's doomsday, and you're going to be happy knowing that, okay, we're under here, we've got it all, we've got lead everywhere, so we won't get the fallout or whatever it is, or the pandemic cannot get us. But inside your brain, the anxiety is going to be there, which is going to put a real damper on your enjoyment. In other words, it's complete idiocy to think that you can, by your material wealth, you can be saved. Isn't that a lot of the lesson of Krishna's killing all these demons? Right? Ravana was unlimitedly wealthy. Kamsa had all the money. He was, people were surrendering to him, And Hiranyakashipu, he had all the demigods bowing down to him. Even Narada Muni said he did, except for Shiva and Brahma and Vishnu, But was he free of anxiety? Was he happy? No. He had this son who somehow he couldn't kill. That scared him when he had all his henchmen try to kill him and he couldn't be killed. Because that's a tremendous power. It may be defensive power, but it's still, So where was the happiness? He had all the gold, Hiranya, he had the soft beds and all the women, but he wasn't happy. So this is the situation. Now in Krishna, he creates this situation because we want it. We want to try to enjoy separately. But it's what they call tough love. He still loves us. He still accompanies us. And he's always ready to respond if we just turn our face to him and make even one little effort to be Krishna conscious. And so, but meanwhile, as we say, stubbornly opposed, and you're fixed. Then he provides this means, and he accompanies, gives the intelligence, and creates the earth, water, fire, ether, everything, so you can have a field of trying to enjoy, and then be kicked again. They'll be kicked again. So, we don't learn the lesson. You can't learn the lesson just from being punished. There has to be some instruction, some knowledge. Which, here's why it's happening, and here's the other alternative. Come back to the spiritual world. It's a perfect expression is that famous verse that Prabhupada gave lecture after lecture on when the fifth canto came out. Rishabhdev's first instruction. Nayam deho deha bhajanga loke kashtang kamanarate vidbhujange tapo divyam puttakaya nasatvam shuddye jasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam. This human life is not meant for working hard for hoggish happiness, just like the hogs eat stool. That's their happiness. So we would, that's horrific. But we're no better if we're simply involved in sense gratification, just a different variety. It's not what human life is meant for. Rather, it's meant for divine austerity. In other words, austerity is a power. Hiranyakashipu did austerity, for demonic purposes. But no, tapo divyam puttaka, under the instruction of a realized soul and authorized austerities. For what purpose? Purification of the heart of material desire. Tapodim puttaka, O sons, yena sattvam shuddye. Your existence, sattvam, because it will become purified, shuddye. What does that mean? It means that the very impetus or idea of sense pleasure will become distasteful to you. You'll become cured of that disease which has been plaguing us for millions of births. Shuddya yasmad, and proportionately, brahma saukyam tvanantam. You'll become eligible to enjoy spiritual happiness. And what's the main difference? Tvanantam means? Yeah, unending. Yeah, unlimited, unending. In other words, unlike material happiness, which everyone knows is flickering,
It comes and goes and leaves a memory and draws you on again, and then there's all the suffering to it. This is spiritual happiness, which doesn't produce suffering and is endless and unlimited. So, having faith that there is such a means, we take up the process of devotional service. Yes, which requires some austerity. But in this age, it's been made so simple, so easy. I mean, if you really get into kirtan and chanting the holy name and taking the process, these austerities are feasible. Let's say they're feasible. They're not. I mean, we're so conditioned, but it's practically nothing compared to what we read about. Even today, these yogis are going through austerities. What to speak of the people who try to really win, make it in this material world? The guys who come out of MIT or Harvard or these big schools, many of them just go straight to Wall Street. That's where the money is. We can become billionaires, And so they work 80 hours a week, as apprentices, how to manipulate the stock market and all this stuff. So they're thinking dollar signs, So that's not austere. Can you imagine? Working 80 hours a week and being somebody's slave, basically, And how many really make it? In other words, there's tons of austerity on the material side. And a lot of it is is not really, wouldn't say tapasya or austerity. It's not voluntary, involuntary austerity. Migrating just so you can eat, with your whole family. It's insane. So take on is a little voluntary austerity for the sake of purification, and quickly, relatively quickly, come to the point where you can just, you're able to stay unentangled, If I hadn't become a devotee, I would be long dead, because I'm living in an environment with these drugs and all of these things going on. And somehow I took up the chanting and read the right books and associated with the devotees. So we're kind of a rescue crew. We're also being rescued, but we're also trying to rescue some people from this ocean of suffering. Samsara Davananda Lila, and the forest fire. I think I chanted this verse before, but it's such a wonderful verse. I'll share it with you again. It says, how can we get out of this ocean? This is at the end of the 4th chapter of the 12th canto. Samsara sindamati dustadam uttitirshor nanyak plavo bhagavatak purushoktamasya lila katavasa nishevana mantarena pungso bhaved vivida dukkha davarditasya. So vivida dukkha, all kinds of varieties of sufferings, like a forest fire, dava like is davanala, is a forest fire. Arditasya, suffering, we're suffering all these varieties of miseries, pandemic, all this stuff. And we're suffering it's like imagine a blazing fire on a cruise ship. So you're in the ocean, but then you paid your money to enjoy, and this is, what's happening. Now that's a great place for the pandemic, These cruise ships, you're packed in, one person gets. So anyway, it says, Samsara Sindhu Ati Dustanam Utti Tirshur. So the samsara, sin, the ocean of samsara, which is very difficult to cross over. Ati dustaram. Dustaram means difficult. Ati means really super difficult. But we're eager, right? We have to be eager to end this. This is the first impetus for spiritual life. Let's get out of here. It's so miserable. Utti Tirshur, and take as many with us as we can. So he says, there's no other boat than what I'm going to describe. Nanyak plavo bhagavatak purushottamassa lila katavisa nishevanam. Then cultivating the taste for the nectar of hearing about Krishna's pastimes. And of course that includes the holy name. The taste for the holy name and the form and the quality. In other words, for Krishna. Lila katavisa nishevanam antanena. Pungso, for the human being who is suffering so many burning miseries in this world. So this is, how do we cultivate that taste? Rishabdev says, take on the austerities of bhakti, and primarily hearing and chanting. And we've been given such a great chance, First and foremost, cultivating taste for the holy name, giving up the offenses. So that's the essential foundation of everything. And along with the holy name, hearing Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's words, and the Krishna book, Krishna's pastimes, and the beautiful form of the deity, name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. And everything follows from that. Okay, Krishna, although he expanded as the Paramatma, Krishna's in our heart. He's helping us. It's nothing but Krishna. He's giving us intelligence. And if we want it, he'll give us the intelligence of how we can come to him. What is that verse? We can all chant together. We should know this one. 8:10. Tesham satati yuktanam bhavatam priti purvakam tadhami buddhi yogam tam yenamam piyanti te. So those who are always devoted to serving me with love, yuktanam, link to me. Tesham satati yuktanam, how does it go? Satatam priti purvakam. With love, I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. So Krishna is the source of the intelligence. We just learned that. And heard it again. So just as the super soul will be giving us the intelligence, how we can do our little enjoyment, he's giving the ant, you do this, go here, find the sugar over there. He'll also give us the intelligence, and this is what he wants. He's not just going to be the observer, but he wants us to how we can come to him, how we can improve our sadhana, how we can avoid the offenses, if we want it. So they're cultivating that desire for Krishna, and by the proper association, avoiding the offenses and following the program is how we can, and then everything becomes more relishable. Just reading the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, serving, doing everything, and helping each other be Krishna conscious. And we won't be like those stupid bees who are after the honey and biting each other and go, yes. I mean, isn't it tragic to imagine, we were there. Is it any different, Prabhupada said, from the nations biting each other? Or people, rioting in the street and competing for so many things? So much ignorance, and we have the knowledge here, and Prabhupada has given us, we can cure that. All right, it's after 8:30. Let me read this wonderful translation again. My dear Lord, after creating by your own potencies, you enter within the creation in 4 kinds of forms. Being within the hearts of the living entities, you know them and know how they are enjoying their senses. The so-called happiness of this material creation is exactly like the bee's enjoyment of honey after it has been collected in the honeycomb. Comments? Questions? Well, how about one sweet honey-like verse? You can taste it again and again. You don't have to fight over it. Smita ruchi makabanda. This is a prayer to always have Krishna's remembrance of Krishna's lotus face in the lake of one's heart. Smita duchi makadanda syandi vaktrara vindam tavapada hangsan vishta gandham mukunda vidachata pashupari netra saranga rangam mamadidiyata dage sangamangi karotu. We'll have more bees here, but these are the bees of the gopis' eyes, which are relishing the sweet honey of Krishna's beautiful face. From the lotus of your face, you can think of Giridhari. From the lotus of your face, dear Lord, trickles forth the luscious nectar of the beauty of your smile. Your exalted devotees, great swans, seek the fragrance of that lotus, which does ere their hearts beguile. Your beloved gopis' eyes, mad bees, taste the most exquisite pleasure in that honey of your face. O my dear Mukunda Dev, I pray, may the lake of my poor heart that luscious lotus ever grace. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, how about that? O Krishna Bhavandam Vande, Munmanasamadakadama Payanitapadapang Kachamakadande. O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat. Please place the bee in my restless mind and the honey of your lotus feet. Thank you, Prabhupada.